So, hey, how's it going, everybody? I've had some guys ask some questions, and one guy, Jim, wanted to know what's the difference between officers and enlisted in SOF. Well, for example, for the Ranger Regiment, to be an officer in the Ranger Regiment, you have to have already served in a regular Army unit first, have proven yourself as an exceptional leader there. Then you have to apply for and attend the 75th Ranger Regiment's Ranger Assessment Selection Program. Part two or level two is the one that officers go to, and senior enlisted. But once they make it through that, they have a board where they are selected. After they physically pass RASP, then they have to go to a board. If they're accepted after completing the board, then they will be assigned as a lieutenant. Well, typically they're going to be like a first lieutenant by this point in time. Then they'd be assigned to a Ranger platoon, where they'll be in charge of about 25 to 28 or so Rangers. Within that Ranger platoon, they're going to have an E7 or sometimes an E8 platoon sergeant. That platoon sergeant, and this is the difference in the enlisted and officers in SOF. And let's back it up. So, like, to be an officer in a regular Army unit, they're going to be the ultimate boss. The platoon sergeant they have, which may be an E6 or even E7, he's going to take all orders from that officer. He's going to do exactly what he says. That enlisted guy is going to have some input and some direction in how the platoon goes, but ultimately the decisions are up to that platoon leader. In the Ranger Regiment, it's a little bit different. So that officer is coming into a Ranger platoon with an E7 or E8 platoon sergeant who has tons and tons of combat experience, especially during the GWOT, where we're like constantly deploying all the time. That platoon sergeant's going to have tons and tons of combat experience. So, like, countless deployments under his belt. His squad leaders are going to be highly experienced. They're all going to have way more experience than that new first lieutenant, possibly captain, that's their new platoon leader. So that platoon leader, typically the way they're going to do it in the Ranger Regiment, they'll come in, they're going to listen to their platoon sergeant and see how he runs everything. And then they're going to be the ultimate overall planner for the platoon, helping the platoon sergeant. And the way I like to look at it is that platoon leader is the platoon's advocate to the chain of command. So that officer is going to go advocate for that platoon up to the battalion staff for different training, to the company level for different things like that, and advocate for training. But ultimately, that platoon sergeant carries a lot more weight in the Ranger Regiment than that regular Army officer or that officer would be used to dealing with in the regular Army. So, for example, in the regular Army, an officer would be the ultimate ground force commander. You go out on a target, he's going to be controlling all the maneuver elements that are going to maneuver on the target. It's not that way in the Ranger Regiment. In the Ranger Regiment, that platoon sergeant is technically going to be maneuvering elements. He's going to be controlling the fight. He's going to be telling dudes where to go, maneuvering guys. Squad leaders are kind of going to know where to go anyway. They're going to be kind of doing their thing under the guidance of the platoon sergeant. And the platoon leader controls like what we like to call the upward and outward fight. So that platoon sergeant's controlling all the fighting forces on the target, where to go, how to SSC, how to clear rooms, how to do sensitive site exploitation, like checking out and finding all the things, all the incriminating evidence we can find on the bad guys so we can interrogate them and get more information for other targets. The platoon leader is going to be tied in really tight with the JTAC or combat controller. So he's going to be able to use that guy to call in fires to contain the objective and protect the guys while they're fighting. And he's going to be talking up and out to the chain of command, to the company level staff or to the battalion staff or to the JSOC staff, whoever they're going to be working for. So that's kind of the difference. Another thing too is, like, officers, and if an officer comes into the Ranger Regiment as a platoon leader, he'll get to do maybe like 2 combat deployments, maybe 3, and a little bit of staff time, and then he's out. Then that dude goes out as a captain, and he's going to go do company command, or he's going to do company commander time in the regular Army, have to do some other stuff, and then maybe 3 or 4 years, he might come back to the regiment if he wants to. A lot of them do, and then he'll be in the next level position, typically as a major. They'll probably come back as a senior captain and then get promoted to major shortly thereafter and be a company commander. More differences between the officers and enlisted. So enlisted guys get to go to all the schools. You think about like scuba school, sniper school, free fall school, explosive breaching courses, basic and advanced demo courses, um, CQB courses, special forces sniper courses, foreign sniper courses. They get to compete in competitions, competing against other guys to prove their best. They get to go to schools like driving schools, shooting schools, CQB schools. I mean, we do a lot of that stuff within the regiment, but there's a lot of outside training that we send guys to so that they can kind of pack that stuff into their toolbox, and it gives them more skill sets to reach back on. Officers don't get to do that. So officers are going to be there. They're going to be managing the platoon, controlling the guys at all times, as well as the platoon sergeant for the most part, because the platoon sergeant will have already been to all those schools. But all the enlisted guys, the E6s and E5s, are going to be hitting all these different schools up, all these training courses, EMT, live tissue training, medical courses, courses on how to interrogate people. I mean, they're going to get all that stuff. The officers, they're not. They don't get to do that. The only school that an officer is probably going to get to go to is Jump Master School. If he's not already Jump Master qualified, he may get to go to Jump Master School. In rare occasions, if they're in a staff position where they're in charge of air ops or something, they may get to go to free fall school. But they just don't get to go to all the cool schools. It's kind of different than, you know, in the movies, you'll see like Commando or something like that. They'll have they'll have, you know, the lead dude, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is like a lieutenant colonel or like a colonel or major or something like that. He's like the baddest of the bone dude, the most trained, elite dude. It's just not that way necessarily in real life. Even in special forces, like in special forces Green Berets, different unit, different way to do it. Officers can go there as a career, but when that officer, brand new officer, gets to a new team in special forces, that team sergeant, that master sergeant, team sergeant that they have, that dude's going to kind of run the show. That officer's going to be, like I said, their advocate up and out. But for the most part, that team sergeant, he's been running that team for a long time, and officers just swap in and out, in and out. So it's kind of the same way. And now there, that officer may get to do a little bit more specialized training, but not near as much as the enlisted guys are going to do. The enlisted guys, they're going to get to go to all the different courses. You name it, whatever course is out there that's better professional development for those guys, the enlisted guys are going to get to go to that. Officers, not so much. They're just going to get to go to the courses that they absolutely need for to do their job. So another difference with the officers is officers obviously get paid more. Their pay grade's a lot higher, but enlisted gets specialty pays that actually compensate for that a little bit. Our pay is still nowhere near what an officer gets, but we do have some specialty pays for some of the stuff that we do, like explosive breaching pay, military free fall pay, combat dive pay, all these different things like that. And then there's also SDAP, special duty allowance pay, that we get extra pay as well, that helps out. But officers don't get that stuff, but their paycheck's a little bit higher. Another thing is officers throughout their career, they're going to do tactical things for a while, and then they're going to go out to the conventional force or to the school system of the Army doing advanced training like that. They may go to the officers or the captain's career course, or what's it called? Command and General Staff College, stuff like that. So officers typically during their career are going to spend probably half of their career in college doing academic stuff, academic training courses, teaching them to be a bigger picture leader. So they're going to learn how things work strategically, how interagency things work and stuff like that, more so than the enlisted guys. Enlisted guys at the higher level SOF units get a lot of that cross training as well, but not to the level that officers do. So most of these officers, by the time they get to the end of their career, these guys are going to have at least like a PhD level of understanding and training in like strategic plans, mission planning, how different organizations work together, the big scheme picture of things. But when it comes to the shooting and the tactics and the surveillance detection, counter surveillance, free fall, all the specialty schools, the cool guy stuff, they don't get to do as much of that, not near as much of that. So the enlisted guys, the way you look at it with the enlisted guys, those are the operators. Those are the guys that are going to stay on those teams for an entire career. So they need to shoot better. They need anything they can learn to shoot better, to be more physically fit, to be stronger, to be a better breacher, to be a better driver, to be better with night vision, to be a better jumper. You name it. Those are the skills those enlisted guys have to have. And they're going to be getting those and accumulating those courses throughout their entire career. Whereas the officers, theirs is more on the academic level and not necessarily the physical hands-on training type level, if that makes sense. If you want to go in the military and you want to, kick indoors, kill bad guys, do surveillance, recce, whatever it is, and you want to be out there doing the job, best way to do it is be an enlisted guy. The enlisted guys get to do all the fun stuff, a lot of the cool stuff. Don't get me wrong, officers get to do some fun stuff too. But a lot of their stuff is paperwork. I mean, they're dealing with a lot of paperwork. They're dealing with a lot of administrative stuff. And then, like I said, they're spending a lot of time in classroom learning college educational type courses throughout their professional development of their military career. Whereas the enlisted guys are constantly getting to do the fun stuff. I mean, for me, in the reconnaissance company, it never got old. Like, we would come back from deployment, we'd do like 2 weeks of military free fall training where we'd be jumping all over the place, jumping across the Grand Canyon, you name it, like cool stuff like that. And then we go right into doing surveillance detection, counter surveillance stuff, following people around in cities, breaking into dudes' hotel rooms like that were role players, and like picking locks and doing sneaky stuff like that. We'd be doing shooting courses, CQB courses. Like one time we went to this course called DARC, Direct Action Resource Center. We were doing CQB stuff there. Is a different course than what we normally go to. So we went there to grab some of the skills from that course and put it back in our toolbox. Then we'd be up in, for example, I went to New Mexico one time. And then we went this is like back-to-back stuff. Like when we come back from the point, jumping, shooting, surveillance detection, advanced medical skills, doing combat, live tissue type stuff, operating on animals and stuff like that in a real medical type environment. We went out to New Mexico one time and we were driving vehicles off-road, doing live fires out of like non-standard vehicles like Toyota Hilux trucks and stuff like that. Doing lots of live fire training there, doing explosive breaching training. Then we also had like professional motocross riders come in and teach us how to ride dirt bikes from like the basic skill level all the way on up. And then we did I think a 70 something mile cross country dirt bike ride across the desert. And then we'd go right back into like learning some skills, how to, bust into some dude's computer, and take information that we may need on that, or how to encrypt things on computers, right into doing big events where we'll jump in and support other units, but doing training, doing the free fall stuff, doing the reconnaissance stuff. You name it, like we constantly did it. It never got old. We were constantly doing new things. It was like, once you're tired of jumping, now you're shooting. Once you're tired of shooting, now you're doing surveillance. Once you're tired of doing surveillance, now you're driving vehicles, doing rally race driving, off-road courses, vehicle recovery courses, and then all kinds of stuff like that. And we would do competitions as well too. We would sometimes, we competed in the Cambrian Patrol. That's an international patrolling competition in Wales where we went over there. In the time we did it, we walked about 55 miles of tactical recce rucks, doing all these different skills. And our team got to go there. We used to send teams over there to compete. And the time when my team went over there, we were the fastest team in the world. Like, we beat all the other teams. Everybody kept saying, the Brits, they would see us walking and they'd come up and say, "Hey, are you blokes the Rangers?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, what's up?" And they're like, "You blokes are fast," because we were just cruising, we were hauling butt, we were super physically fit, and crushing dudes. But yeah, that's the difference. Officers don't get to do a lot of that stuff. I mean, if they're part of a team, they're going to do a lot of that team training, but they're not going to do as much the individual training, if that makes sense. So I hope that helped explain that to you, as far as the way that it's different for officers versus enlisted and SOF. It's a different pipeline. It depends on what you want to do. If you want to make a lot of money and you want to be able to say "Hey, I'm the dude that's in charge," technically on paper, as an officer, that's the way to go. If you want to do the coolest of coolest things, you want to get all the bad to the bone training, you want to pack all these skills in so that when you get out, you're a bad to the bone dude. You can teach other people how to do that stuff and truly become an expert at those skill sets. Being enlisted is the way to go. Being enlisted, the enlisted guys are the true operators in SOF units. Officers get to do it too, but in a very limited fashion, and their time spent in the unit is fleeting. They're going to come in, spend a few years, and have to move somewhere else or move up in a leadership position. So hopefully that makes sense. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll try to push out some more content before too long. Have a good one.